Okay, we are live. We are recording. It's an absolute privilege to be on the call with David Breaker. So it's Keith Mabbutt here on behalf of the Street Soccer Foundation. This is our Street Soccer United podcast we brought back for the new year. We launched this during the pandemic last year as part of our response in terms of bringing together people that we care about, that care about us and the work that we do. And David is an incredible supporter of the foundation, and I'm delighted that we've got you on the podcast today. David Breaker is an incredible man. I'm going to say that right in front of him. Look at this. I'm going to pretend I can't see him, but he is. I know a fair bit about him. And the purpose of this interview is really for anyone that doesn't know him, which is going to be difficult. I just said to David offline, he kind of knows everybody because he networks like anything. He's a real inspiration like that. But he's got a hell of a story, and we're going to dive straight into it because you can probably see the picture on David's screen. And David, if I may, I'd like to straight away kind of hand it over to you to introduce yourself, to those that are going to be watching this, perhaps who've not come across you before, and then we can sort of dive straight in. But over to you, sir. Good to see you.
Thank you, Keith, and it's a real pleasure to. Well, it's always a pleasure to see you, catch up, and speak with you because what you're doing at the Street Soccer Foundation is very important because it's making a difference to people's lives, and that was a big thing for me. Why, when I got the invite to get involved, it was quite important to me because, I'll go into more details later, but the journey I've been through from the man I was. It's very important that I highlight to people that I didn't do it on my own. Because, in actual fact, I did a post about this on LinkedIn the other day about adopting a healthier lifestyle, if it could be done on your own. Because I do question sometimes, I think most people need someone to support them to a degree. And I think it's very important. And that's why, as I say, what you're doing is essential. And I know it's very important to you. I know you could sit on your laurels and you could just relax and enjoy life, but I know that it's important and passionate to you to actually help others. And for me, that's a large driver for me. That as much as it is about ourselves and our own well-being and looking after ourselves, it's about what we can do for others, because there's a big world out there, and we know, sadly, we know very much that the world we live in isn't perfect. It never can and never will be perfect, and there always will be some horrible parts of it. It's part of being human. It's part of the world, but it's very important when there are people out there like yourselves and that want to get involved, that can make that difference to even a single life. Because when you think about it, what's the value of a life?
There's so much there you just said, David, already that I don't know where to thank you first. But thank you, mate, from the heart on that. I really appreciate that, and that, person to person. I mean, it's so frustrating. We haven't seen each other in person for such a long time. It's been one of them, isn't it? And I don't know about you, but we can touch upon this during the chat. But I personally struggle with that, mate. The kind of lack of personal connection. It's great to be on the phone with people and see people on the video and that, but I didn't realise just how much I miss. I'm a bit of a hugger, as I think you know anyway, but I love just being out there and seeing people and giving people hugs, male and female, and it's something I've definitely found hard to cope with. But I think from what you've said there, you're right in the sense of it's been a real interesting one for me, because my background, very briefly, this is about you, but brief context and what you just said there is, I always, when I came out of football and I fell into recruitment and I started running my own businesses and things, it was always about me and the company and making money and driving stuff. But I had such a shift. I'm trying to think when it was, maybe about 2014, something like that, where I had this, I went on a personal development course, basically, like a long 3-dayer, like a 30-hour thing, one of them shockingly intense things. And what I drew out from that is this gratitude piece, and trying to look to help others and support others where you can, and not look for anything in return. And I guess that gave me the foundation without realizing it when I heard about homelessness later that next year, in 2015. Maybe that was in my subconscious, and suddenly when I heard about that, I was free because I'd sold my company, and there you go, mate. But coming to you then, so I want to address these pictures, if I may, Dave. So straight away, I mean, I've got to, mate, because people looking at this are going to go, who the hell is that? Don't take this the wrong way, because and we know we're good mates, but who the hell is that guy in the top left? Yeah, I mean, that cannot be you, but I know it is. I mean, can you take us through that? I mean, can you, please, if you don't mind, take us back to that guy and what the situation was? Who is that person in that corner? I don't like pointing, but who is that guy in that corner? How old are you? What's the situation going on? What's your home environment like? What are you doing on a day-to-day basis? Where are you at? To take us back if you can, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm 37 now. That photo up there was when I was 29, so about 8 years ago now. And I was an exceptionally different man then. But as much as you can see the physical difference between me, yes, but actually the biggest difference, as you pointed out from your own personal development, it's about the mindset. But at that point in my life, I don't hide the fact that I was 32 stone, unemployed, been unemployed for 6 years, stuck at my mum's home, stuck on the benefits, and I was gaming 14 hours a day, just lost in the game. And don't get me wrong, I mean, from everyone's perception, I was happy, and inside my game, I was Gruffgar the Mighty Shaman, defender of the Eastern Kingdoms. I was the man, but it was a game, and I wasn't really achieving anything in my life. And I don't hide from the fact that at that time, I was pretty low, and I was even to a point where I was actually planning how to take my own life. I knew exactly how I was going to kill myself, because from a sort of personal development and sort of life stage, when you look at life stages, I think people commonly forget it's about achievements and about what we achieve in our life that really matters. And it isn't what society says it is, and what society thinks it should be, the getting married, the home, the kids. It's about achieving something which means something to you, something which you enjoy, but gives you a purpose. Because certainly at that time, when I was 29, I didn't have purpose. I just sat and played my game. And don't get me wrong, there were moments of happiness and times when I felt content, but it all sort of led to a conversation with my GP. It's a random medical appointment. I can't even remember what I went to see them about now. And they took the measurements, and he sat down and he said, Dave, he said, 29, 32 stone. Looking at your measurements over the last couple of years, you're putting on about 2 stone a year. He said, I give you maybe 5, maybe 10 years, and you're going to be dead of a heart attack. And without being rude, what have you done with your life?
Jesus.
That's hard. It sounds really harsh, and I have had some people say, well, that seems really unfair what he said, but there, and I'll come to more about this later, but there are tipping points. There are multiple tipping points that we have in our lives, as if like a knife edge, where a decision the other or the way can go. And don't get me wrong, there are tipping points that are positive things that lead to positive outcomes, and there are also negative things. We can't get away from that. You, of all people, considering what you do, know the balance that the people you support will be on. And that GP's conversation was a tipping point. And don't get me wrong, at the time, I didn't want help. I said, no, go away. I don't want help. My mindset was so bad. I didn't think I was worth it. My self-esteem really was very low. But something had stayed with me, probably been planted, because for the next 2 weeks, I kept having the same nightmare over and over. And it's a bit weird to describe, but walking through a graveyard, and there was mist, apparently. I think I've been watching too many films, and there was the idea that the graveyards have mist in them. And I'm walking through this nightmare, and it's just covered in mist, can't see where I'm going, don't know why I'm there for what seems hours. And eventually the mist opens up, and there's a gravestone, and it's knocked over, it's disheveled, it's clearly not looked after. I pick it up, rub it down, and it just says David Breaker. He was here, he played games. And I couldn't get it out of my head. It was just something was like, what am I doing with my life? And I'm sure people listening to this, I don't think anyone gets away from this point in their lives where they sit there and think, what the hell am I doing? Because I don't imagine anyone has a perfect life. No one does. No one can. It's impossible.
No.
Yeah. But and luckily I got help. I got support. I got, I eventually started to get help and got referred to a local service, which gave me help. And I started to lose the weight. Had struggles, issues. In the end, and I'm summarising quickly here because it's a lot. I had gastric surgery to help me lose the weight. And again, it's all about tools. And I'm sure you find this a lot with the workshops and the support you do for your young people. It's about people understanding that there is no harm in using a tool if the tool is used correctly. And one way to really summarize it is, if you need to hammer a nail in the wall, what would you rather use? Your head or a hammer? I'd rather use the hammer. So when I was given this opportunity and this option of gastric surgery, at first I was very dismissive of it because of the normal mentality, but I committed to it. And on the waiting list, lost 5 stone before the gastric surgery, educate myself in nutrition, change my food. So there's even old photos of me in the gym, looking quite weird, trying, and then had the surgery, and then I lost quite a lot. But the really interesting thing is the last 4 or 5 years has been a huge mindset shift change.
Yeah.
And part of that has been my counselling training, my life coaching training. And I don't hide away from the fact that I'm not naturally entrepreneurial. My parents both made bankrupt, never owned property, really struggled. My dad always had a really, really struggled mindset around not work. He was a very hard worker, but he really struggled quite a lot. And I'm very fortunate from my mindset shifting step by step. And this is the important thing for people listening. I didn't do this overnight. Of course I couldn't have. It's ridiculous to think. And it's taken me years to get to this point. But now I run I run multiple businesses. One of them is a 6-figure turnover business selling online. But that's taken hard work. But I think I am going to share something now which may seem quite upsetting and maybe a bit personal for some people, but I think it's really important that you guys hear it.
It can't be more upsetting, Dave. I mean, Jesus.
Okay, well, no, but
go for it. I mean, we've got a hardened audience, so hit us with it.
Yeah, and it comes back to that tipping point.
Yeah.
That I mentioned before, because people might be wondering, why did I get to the way I was? How did I get to that point where I let myself get to that weight? And there'll be numerous different things that led to it. But one of them is an instance when I was 10. And I will explain this. For years, I've not had any memories of younger than 10. I imagine, can you remember being younger than 10, Keith? Can you remember memories of...
I can't remember what happened yesterday, mate. So no.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Fair enough. But for me, I've really struggled to access any memory under the age of 10. And it was through therapy, hypnotherapy, counselling, that I was actually able to start to open up and realise why. And there was an incident, speaking to my family, that happened where we used to live. So, and again, I know a lot of people listening to this will understand the pain of it being in this position. But where we lived down in Raynham years ago, our neighbours were particularly violent, aggressive, drug users, alcoholics. And some of the things they used to do, for example, cutting my dad's brake line on his car. They fed the rabbit a bleached lettuce, killing it, and it all sadly led to. And I'll try to explain. Do you remember the hurricane in mid 1980s, wasn't it? Right, to give you an idea, I slept through that. Right, so that was a pretty heavy hurricane, and I slept through it. But so this incident, I slept through it because I was only 10 when it happened. But basically, the neighbours decided to have a party. As they did, they regularly did, but this one was pretty bad. It was very noisy. The music was extremely loud. And my mum and dad, they just wanted rest. They'd been working all day, both been working, bringing up 3 kids. And it sadly led about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, with the party still going, with my parents going around and asking them to turn it down. And in that single night, it led to my mum being strangled, but she survived. My dad being assaulted by a group of men. One of my sisters having her knees broken, and another sister being raped. And I woke up to it as a 10-year-old. No idea why and what was going on. Everyone around me was broken. And I didn't understand. And I know a lot of listeners, people watching this, will understand and maybe connect with that and understand the pain of being in that position as a 10-year-old, not understanding why the world around you is broken. And that was a tipping point for me. That led me to withdraw from the world, because the world was scary. Whereas my gaming, I can manage that. That's safe because I can just turn it off.
Yeah. Oh, Dave, bloody hell! I mean, it's escapism, isn't it? Basically, mate. You know, just getting into a different world, shutting yourself off from reality, and finding a new, different reality that, you know, you can be the master of your own destiny and charge what you're doing and who you're interacting with. And I mean, I didn't actually know that, mate. And I think you know that. So that's really hard to hear. And I mean, that's mulled the interview because all my questions have gone out the window. But on a serious, I can only thank you for being so honest to share such a personal story. I mean, it was a question, clearly. How do you get, or did you get to that point? Because there has to be a reason, right? There has to be. You don't go from whatever you might have been, 8, 10, 12 stone to 32 stone just because you feel like it. There's a real reason for that, you know, and typically there is a trigger and a circumstance that drives that, because you're kind enough to reference every so often the work that we do, but and it's fair because I get it. I understand entirely what you've just said, because that often is the case. There's a certain trigger that happens for an individual that then leads on a kind of a domino effect, and there's certain, you know, situations that they're then faced with and they get stuck. The amazing thing with you is the fact that you were into that point, but then you've been able to pull yourself back out. And sadly, there's so many people that are on this journey that aren't able in their own mind at the moment, perhaps, to then release from that. And if I may, Dave, focusing on that more so, that when you got to that point, because of that, what you just shared, and then I guess am I fair to say that your trigger at that second point in terms of that picture was, I guess, fear? Is that probably fair? Because of what the doctor said, you know, that fear served as a trigger to then do something about it. Because if someone just turns around and says, "Oh, you're a bit overweight," you know, and half jokes about it, you probably don't really then you don't have an inclination to want to change it. You'd have a bit of banter about it, but not really much happens. But if someone point blank to your face says you're going to die within 10 years, that's really between the eyeballs. And I guess, is that right, fair to say, mate, that it was that kind of in your face moment, and because of the blooming dreams that you were having, that it was like, I'm absolutely going to commit to this transformation? Is that probably fair?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting subject, I suppose. When you look at it, I'd say definitely fear was part of it. Fear of dying, and fear of. It's interesting when you think about when people are trying to commit to a change, or when they're trying to process a change, it's about whether they're in that contemplation stage. There's actually a theory known as the cycle of change, which goes through it, and many people aren't. They're either aware they need a change, or they're not even aware that if they know they want to make a change, they haven't even thought about it. And certainly before that stage, I wasn't even aware. It's a really worth, if you ever get a chance, look into it. Cycle of Change by De Casca and De Clementine. I think I've mixed up the words there, but it goes through these cycles that we go through, and that it's been very, for me, it's been very clear about the fact that it's about you actually being conscious and aware that you need to want to change. So I can have someone say to me, "Oh yeah, you're overweight, you need to lose weight."
Yeah.
But it was that internal reason. As I said, you know, if I was really in that place when the GP done it to me, I went, "Oh, yep, sign me up." But I wasn't. It was the nightmare. and the fear of the fact that I was going to lead a life where I had done nothing of any substantial, not worth, but as within a financial, but worth for me, for making me feel like I've made a difference. And I would certainly suggest that anyone listening to this or watching this really think about if you're ready to make that change, and if you haven't set time aside to think about making the change, then you need to. Because if you're throwing yourself into a change before you even considered why it means something to you, then it's not going to go the way you want it to.
Is that one of the kind of, so through your coaching company, Breakthrough Coaching, is that one of the kind of starting questions that you have with anyone that comes across your way, that or approaches you directly? You know, is it typically someone who is obese that comes to you with some form of weight issue? Is that firstly the case? What's your typical person that you support, if there is a typical person? And secondly, how direct are you with them, Dave? Like, are you kind of almost like your GP was to you, right between the eyeballs, look, you're bloody overweight, you're going to die in 2 years? Or are you a bit more sensitive around the subject because they're a client, respectful of the fact that it was a GP? So you know, there's no payment going on there, kind of thing. There's no commercial aspect there. It's like you're seeing a GP, he can tell you what you want, whether you like it or not. That's kind of it, depending on their attitude and personality, I guess. There are other doctors out there that might have been a bit more sensitive, but actually, thanks to that GP in one way, because you're here, mate, and you're kicking it. So good on him, whoever that guy is, actually. But coming back to you, is that how do you kind of work with individuals, and how do you address them?
So, firstly, to answer the first question about the type of people in a sense that I work with, it is either the ones that are struggling with. I call myself a weight loss coach, but to be honest, I'm more really of a health and lifestyle coach. For me, it's, in fact, I had a consultation with a client last week, and I said, my main priority of you is not to help you lose weight. And they sort of looked at me like, there. And it's like, because it is about adopting permanent sort of long-term lifestyle changes that are small adjustments to your life where you know, in the long run, okay, a benefit is you would hopefully lose weight, but it's not about that. But I'll give you a perfect example of, because I have duality in my business from the weight, because that is my passion, is supporting people with lifestyle. But one of my clients at the moment, when he originally came to me, he's in a very well-paid job. Okay, he's earning quite a bit of money. But in his consultation, he openly admitted he hated his job. I won't use the language he used to describe his job, but he hated it. His real passion was music. And I mean, but his confidence had been knocked. He'd, and there were certain things that was a struggle for him. But by working with him, I've been able to get him to a point where, and I've been quite firm with him sometimes. I've been very, very, as you sort of say, it is about having that accountability. I'm not rude, but I am very, very firm, because if I hear something linguistically that they say that doesn't match what they've said before, doesn't match what they've resonated with before, I will pick them up on it, because we need that. We all need that. I need that. My partner does it to me all the time. When I say something that, because I'm by, and I will say this to everyone now, I'm by no means perfect. Please do not assume that I am a perfect person, because I'm not. Because no one is, no, and again, that's one of the reasons why a lot of clients come to me, because I am a very down to earth, but also human person, in a sense that I do not actively, don't get me wrong, I know there are loads of coaches out there that promote people about having the perfect life and the perfect health and eating perfectly. No, just no, that's not how I work, because we are human. It's okay to have a balance in life. And I think I know that pain of not having a balance.
Yeah.
Okay. I've been in that position. And now it's very important that I help support clients to understand that, because it can be very tricky on your own without someone to externally sort of, give you that bit of extra understanding of the position you're in, because it's all within the eye of the beholder, isn't it?
Yeah.
So.
Well, so I mean, do you think then you can define, like, if someone says kind of what is a healthy lifestyle, can that be answered, Dave? Like, or not really?
So for me, a healthy lifestyle is, for one, are you eating food that is nutritious, giving you a good access to macro and micronutrients that is fueling the most important part of your body, your brain. Okay, and people forget the connection with gut health here, and the fact that by supplying yourself with good whole foods that are not prepackaged, that's the doorbell.
Yeah, that is the best doorbell of all time.
It is, but it's it is about having a balance of those nutritious foods that are really fueling your body, because people need to understand the reason why we eat food is fuel. Simply put, it's fuel for our body, but it's important that we fuel our bodies with the correct food. A perfect example is, I know you drive, Keith, but do you have a diesel or petrol car?
Petrol.
Okay, would you ever put diesel in your car?
No, absolutely.
Why? What?
Because I just couldn't do it, mate, because the car, I've got a decent car. I've worked really hard to get a decent car. And if I do that, my life's over.
Yeah, they are. So why do people do that with their lives and their bodies?
Really fair point, yeah.
And that's the thing. And this is the thing. And don't get me wrong, it's okay for us to have treats. I have treats. The other day, we had some bananas that were going black. I made some banana bread. Okay, and that's fine. But it's about understanding that balance. And secondly, for me, how active are you? Think about, and this is actually a really big point for these last 12 months, right? How much are people sitting on their rear ends most of the days in front of a computer working? And I appreciate it. My business is all online now. I have to actively, and I won't lie, I have been missing the gym. We were going 3 days a week, swimming twice a week. I've been missing, and when we got the news it's going to be open up again, bring it on, because it is that balance. But I think the final key that people commonly forget about a lifestyle, not only is it about the fueling yourself with good food, but also good activity, but there's a bigger sort of third final impact, which is the overall sort of positive well-being like things that your life needs. Okay, and again, I appreciate this. You said before, it's about that connection with people. So big, that connection with people. I have changed. Part of the reason why I've changed my life around is because I've connected with people. Okay, and I think the final advice I'd ever give anyone that is really thinking about their lifestyle is probably the most important: be kind. Be so kind, because a perfect example of this, think about the way you might speak to yourself sometimes. We've all been there when we've really said horrible things to ourselves, and I don't think there's anyone that's immune to it. How would you say that same type of stuff to your best friend? Most people wouldn't.
Yeah, very fair. I think what all of what you've said is clearly solid and firm and good advice. I think, if I may, though, on that briefly, Dave, I think it's got to have been so hard for so many people, and I know that for definite for who we're supporting. You know that, no doubt, for the typical client that you're coming across and supporting, and obviously the work that you've done in the charity world as well. I know you support BMix, another fantastic charity, but with this pandemic, and I don't want to dwell on it because everyone's fed up with that word, but it's a fair reference point that, when things are taken out of your control to a degree, i.e. lockdown, and you're being told to stay at home, and like you talked about connection, well, then you have a lack of connection. You lose that connection because you can't get out and see people. Yes, you might be able to do this sort of thing and have a video chat. It's not the same, that. The personal connection is, in person. And like I say, we've seen it massively with what we do at the foundation. But because of all of that, how big a problem is obesity, and attached to that, people's mindset and mental health? And I know it's a massive subject. Everyone's going on about it right now. It's the buzzword of the moment. But I don't mean to be flippant about that, because it's obviously incredibly important. But with all of that being said, in the case that we're all faced with right now, the vast majority of the country, I think it's fair to say, have been or even are vulnerable at some level. And so with all that being the case, attached to their health and their lifestyle and what they're doing and their choices and decisions that they're making, what advice can you give someone, Dave? Because in the normal world, what you've just said is great, but in the world we're in at the moment, where it's conditioned slightly, what could you offer there, mate? I mean, obviously you're there as an individual and you can support people personally directly, absolutely, but the general advice that you might be able to give in difficult circumstances, you know, where it's not ordinary.
So the first advice I'd always give everyone is if you haven't heard of it, look into circle of control or circle of influence, because it's very important that we focus on the things we can control. Okay, a perfect example: I've not been able to see my mum anywhere near as much as I'd like to. You know, my dad passed away 4 years ago. I am in many ways a mummy's boy, you know, and I love spending time with her. And I'm not going to have her forever, but I've not been able to see her, and that's impacted me. Now, I could have stressed myself out about that, but I can't change it. And I think that's a big issue that a lot of people struggle with over these last 12 months, is they've not really reflected upon what's within my circle of control, what isn't, what's outside it, what's in my influence and what's outside my circle of control. Because we spend a lot of time and a lot of energy, and don't get me wrong, it is energy, okay? When you understand how stress works and anxiety and how it's related to our body releasing hormones to manage that stress and for us to prepare, it's that's your fight, flight and freeze response. It takes energy, okay? And it's not an unlimited resource, okay? We cannot possibly, you know, have it to spread out ever. So that's the first thing. Focus on what you can control. And I think second advice I give to people at the moment, it comes back to that being kind in a way, but if you're beating yourself up because of the position you're in, or because you have, you know, you are putting some extra weight on, or you've not been doing certain things, how well has that behavior served you, beating yourself up? I imagine not much. So it's like when you think about, I'm trying to think of, it's an old Einstein quote, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over but expecting a different result. Well, beating yourself up every day in, week out, month out, if it's not making any difference, not helping you, then why keep doing it?
Yeah.
And the third and final thing that I suggest people at the moment is start thinking of the small changes you can control and the small things you can start doing. So maybe, for example, if you're not planning your meals at the moment, start looking at planning meals. It's not that hard. I did my food planning yesterday. We've got and we only plan dinners. Okay, but that makes it a lot easier for me. That means I know what's going on there. I can buy my shop in and base it there. Okay, and I think importantly is be very clear about why you might want to change. This comes back to what we said before. You know, I do a lot of volunteering for the council. So I meet people that are going on weight loss journeys. I used to do them in person. I've done like 16 already over the last couple of years. And they're online now, again, because, you know, I do appreciate we can't connect and it does make that difference. But, you know, I often ask these people that are considering going on the gastric surgery route, and I ask them, why do you want to have the surgery? Why do you want to lose weight? And commonly, because they haven't thought about it, they go, oh, well, because I've been told I need to lose weight. And I challenge them openly and say, I'm sorry, but that's not good enough. Well, what do you mean? It's not enough. And it is never going to be enough. If it was enough, you would have lost weight by now.
Yeah.
Because you would have. But it's so important that people really think about why you want to do something and the impact that it will have on you and those around you. And thusly, it's about finding, in a sense, that motivation. So I'll give you a perfect example. One gentleman, he was in his mid-60s, lovely gentleman, quite overweight. And I asked him, why do you want to lose weight? And why do you want to do the surgery? And he went to me, he said, well, he said, I've only got one granddaughter. He said, I'm worried about losing her. But actually for me, Dave, he said, whenever, and this was about 2-3 years ago, so before the whole C word thing, I'm not going to say it because it gives it power like Voldemort from Harry Potter. He said, I used to take my granddaughter out, we'd go out somewhere, park up, and we'll go in and we'll have like food, we'll go shopping, and I'll spend time with her. And he said, but whenever we leave and we walk back to the car, she always runs to the car and beats me. And he said, the reason I want to lose weight, he said, I want to be able to run to the car and beat her. You can't, and you could see the look on his face. It was really personal to him, really meant a lot to him. And in actual fact, the last time I bumped into him about 1.5 years ago, so about roughly a year after I met him, he had the surgery and he had done very well. And it was a bit embarrassing for me because he bumped into me in a supermarket and he went, I just want to say, Dave, you were the person that really pushed me. And he said, I'm where I am thanks to you. And I quickly challenged him and said, that's kind, but actually it's not me, it's you, mate. You're the one who's done it all. But it's stuff like that really, people don't really think about this stuff. It's really key that you think of your motivation to why you want to change, because otherwise you will not change. And importantly, and I realize I'm going on here, but this is very important for people to don't think about. If the pain of staying where you are is less painful than the pain of changing, then you will not change, because it's less painful to stay as you are.
Yeah.
But the really important thing here is think about the idea of if you were walking down the high street, I mean, not so much now, we're in lockdown, and you put your foot through a rusty nail, ouch for starters. But again, in that same situation, what's more or less painful, pulling the nail out or leaving it in there? Well, if you leave it in there, it's going to be less painful that short term. But what's going to happen? Well, gangrene, you're going to probably could lose a foot. And that's where people aren't thinking about this. They're not thinking they're so focused on the short-term pain and wanting to avoid that, they're not thinking of the long term, because it does leave an impact.
It's incredible advice, Dave. It's incredible advice. And I'm a huge supporter of what you just said. I mean, the self-talk, self-motivation, self-discipline piece is massive, and that belief system in terms of then the outputs that you know through your actions and decisions that you make. It absolutely serves as that kind of transformation piece, and you're right. If you do, it's such solid advice. We'll make sure we caption this when we put this, this is out there on our channels, that, if you do want something different, you've got to do something different. You can't keep doing the same thing and expect different results. And that's such brilliant on the nose advice for people who are watching this. And I think so many people are going through the motions that they're considering what they can't do. And you said that what you said earlier, focus on what you can do, and that cycle, circle of control, what you mentioned, it's exactly the case. And on a more lighter note, so I'm going to challenge you here. So we're talking on a Friday. You probably know what I'm going to say, but basically Friday night and Saturday night arguably are, from statistics, the nights when people get takeaways, they just give in. They have their night off, their weekend off, whatever it might be. What are you, honest to God, doing, honestly, tonight or tomorrow night? Are you going to get a takeaway? Do you ever get takeaways? Do you ever let yourself have a breather? And is that the right thing to do, have a breather? Is that the wrong mindset I'm saying now out loud, have a breather? Because maybe that's completely the wrong thing to have said. But what's going on with you generally during the week?
So, I mean, tonight, no, I'm not getting a takeaway. We do get no, I'm sorry, but we do get takeaways every now and then. We do, because again, it's about a balance. But the common mindset for most people is they have it as a weekly treat. We don't have that. It is generally maybe a monthly treat or maybe a bi-monthly treat. And we do, we did used to go out to restaurants, obviously not recently, for obvious reasons. But it's, the thing for me is, I enjoy cooking. I very much enjoy cooking, and again, because this has come, I never used to know how to cook or bake. And there's a story here, but I won't say it. But I've actually once burnt salad. So, and if people really want to know, they can message me to find out how I burnt salad. But so like tonight is a homemade onion biryani. Very
lovely. Very right. So because of what you've just said there, this is a bit off piece, but that's crazy. But who on a serious mate, who so coming towards the end of our chat, and it's been amazing, and love you to bits, mate. I mean, you've been incredible, and I mean, you've answered so many of my questions in the natural flow of you just talking freely, which has been lovely. But I imagine the person that you are now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say the vast majority of your working week, or even existence on a 24/7 basis, is supporting other people.
Yeah.
And that being the case, you're only human, right? And you can only give so much. whether you like it or not. And so, is there anyone around you that you seek counsel from, and who supports David Breaker? Because you know this, and I know this, but let me say it briefly. Investing in you, is the best investment you can make, because the best version of yourself, everyone else around you benefits, not only you, but everyone around you. And so if you're serving and supporting other people, you want to be top dollar, basically. You want to be 100% David Breaker, because they're going to get the best result from that. If you're 10% David Breaker, clearly, obviously not as good. So how are you getting, I mean, and do you need it? I would imagine you do, right? Because you are human, unless I'm talking to an AI version of you, which I hope I'm not. Who knows now with the future coming, but are you able to answer that, mate? I mean, who's looking after you, mate, and how often do you seek that support?
So I get numerous supports from numerous people. So I mean, listing them off, for one, is my very loving partner, who's also my business partner, because they very much keep me in check, but also they give me that moment to connect with someone. And importantly for me is you mentioned that I'm a very big networker. I'm humorous. There's numerous people in my network. I could list, Sue Boswell, Graham Baker, Ash Lawrence, obviously Ash Lawrence, Kaz Macklin from the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce, all people, and there's even more. So I feel bad if I haven't listed anyone, but these people are, I think sometimes people don't realize the impact they have, because I'm as strong as I am, and I don't mean that arrogantly. I am a very strong person. I'm also equally vulnerable, because I'm emotional. I'm empathetic. I care. I want to help many people, and there are limits where I hit, and sometimes those people keep me in check. I also have my own life coach. I'm my own business coach, which regularly, sometimes very, very, very firmly put me in hand, because as you know from yourself, from the work you do, that a passion for something is very, very good, but that passion, like a blade at a smithery, needs to be honed. It needs to be sort of smithed into a form which creates purpose, because it's very easy for us in our passions to lose ourselves and not be a sharpened blade. And I'm very fortunate for that, because I absolutely believe I would not be in a position where I am now if it wasn't for those people around me. And I think that's a really big thing for people watching this now, is to understand. I'm trying to remember saying about, if you go on your own, Neil De Silva, who's I don't know if you know of Neil, if you've heard Neil De Silva. We've been collaborating a lot lately, and there's a saying he says, but it's about going on your own. I can't remember the full saying, but it really, and I think I said this in the newsletter, if you think you need to do this on your own, and if you think it's a weakness to say that you need help, it's not. It's totally not. In fact, it's probably the strongest thing you'll ever do, is to admit, I can't do this on my own, because we all need help. You go and do it on your own, Keith. Could you imagine that? You don't. You've got loads of people that support you.
Yeah, it's the opposite. I mean, just yesterday, I had a call from a young person, partially keep it in confidence, but just in circumstantial terms, he opened up to say that basically he'd come through our academy, all this positivity and everything else, getting on a pathway of development, but his home environment, he then opened up by saying that actually it's just him and his mother who he's effectively caring for, because she's got severe autism, and it's become an incredibly difficult home environment that he's now frankly struggling with, because obviously the restrictions and lockdown and everything else. And but in admitting that, it's the strongest thing, because that's so personal, and he'd not shared that up until that point, because he himself has been extremely vulnerable. He's been a young ex-offender, fell into the wrong circles, certain things going on with him as an individual. So we'd worked with him on that, but then to bring another person in the same household into the mix that he's having to deal with on his own. So he's trying to sort himself out, keep himself straight and narrow, and then look after his parent at the same time. So you're absolutely right. You know, by admitting a weakness, if that's the right word, it's an experience, it's a skill set. You know, you're by way of admission that you're wanting to change that for the better. Excuse me. That's a fantastic, strong thing to be, you know, to have as a characteristic. So thank you again for sharing that, Dave. I mean, it's been incredible. I could talk to you all day, and you know that. I'm conscious we've gone slightly over, but we're not going to edit it. We're going to put this whole thing out because it's been brilliant. And I'm immensely grateful for you sharing what you've done today. And just for the benefit of everyone watching, I mean, the best ways of getting in touch with you, David Breaker, and Breakthrough Coaching, would you mind just sharing? I mean, we'll tag it on the video when we go live with it, but what's your best way to get in touch with you?
The best way is probably my website, which is just very simple, breakthroughlifecoaching.co.uk. So same, if you search Breakthrough Life Coaching or David Breaker, you'll find me up on Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm very active and busy on LinkedIn, so please connect with me on there. Yeah, check it out. In fact, the website is getting updated soon, so it will look nice and fancy.
Brilliant.
But yeah,
you are easy to find actually, David, because I myself, before this interview, I googled David Breaker. You're everywhere. Page 1 of Google. You're on KMTV. You're on BBC Southeast. You're on LinkedIn. You're everywhere. So if anyone can't find you online, so it's seriously wrong. But no, it's a fantastic privilege and pleasure to speak with you. And you're genuinely, I know people can kind of just throw words out, but you honestly are an inspiration. Honestly, mate, you know, and I mean that. I can't tell you how much I mean that. I mean, I take such great inspiration from you and your story that is so empowering for other people, and some of the people that we support and come across, and people like your kind self. It really resonates because it's not just us telling people or advising people and talking. It's showcasing. And actually, as a reference point and a signpost, you know, we can point someone into your direction and your story, and they can see it. I mean, look, they visually as well as factual through speaking with you, but they can see the difference and what you've gone through. So honestly, I'm so grateful for you being on the show, talking to me. The fact that I know you is brilliant, and it's a great privilege to have you in my life, mate. So thank you very much for all your support. It's been brilliant speaking to you, mate. And again, you know, final words, if anything, just for those that are watching. Otherwise, it's a wrap. But thank you again, mate.
Well, and just thank you. And again, and you know, as I'll end as I started. It is all about what you're doing at Street Soccer Foundation, Keith, and about the difference you're making to young people's lives. Okay, because and I know it hasn't been easy. And I know it hasn't been easy. We cannot get away from that, right? But it's so important that people, when given an opportunity that you're giving these people, engage with it.
Thank you, mate.
Absolutely engage, because it will change your life. Okay, and you might not see the change straight away. It might be only small changes at first, but I promise you, life is not all about the big changes. Not all about losing the 20 stone in weight. It's actually about the small micro changes in your life that lead to a bigger change. The Street Soccer Foundation will help that. So.
Thank you so much, mate. David, honestly, really amazing. It's been incredible, and thank you again. So today it's been the Street Soccer United podcast. Myself, Keith Mabbutt, founder of the foundation, with David Breaker of Breakthrough Life Coaching. You're also an ambassador for Wellness HQ, is that right? That I know we didn't touch upon, but again, just Google David and you'll find out all the stuff he does. But do get in touch with him if this has resonated on any sort of level. If you're struggling in some way with your weight or your mindset around your food habits or diet or nutrition, you know, or you just need to reach out to someone who's clearly experienced in knowing how to turn your life around for the better. You know, you've got a real genuine expert here in David. So please, you know, feel and have that confidence to do so. And David, thanks again once more. Thanks, guys. Until the next time.
Take care.
That's brilliant, mate. I'm just going to stop the recording.